All right, everybody, here I am. It's live. Make sure to tell me if my microphone is not working properly so I don't go ahead of the game and start talking like crazy. I'm just going to turn this music down because I know sometimes music interferes with the stream. Some people like music, some people don't, but I just had it in there for a little bit of background before I came on. I know I said 4:35, but I thought, okay, I'm ready. Let's go for it. Let's go live right now. It is the Order of Velvet Bite, and I am doing the shows Wednesdays and Thursdays now instead of Tuesday and Thursday. It just works better for me. Oh, my nose is itchy. But this week it's only Wednesday. I don't see a point in doing it on Thursday, and I still got the sparkles on me. Let's see if I can take away those sparkles. It's an overlay. It's cute, but it's distracting. There we go. Sparkles be gone. All right. We got Matthew. Welcome to the Order of Velvet Bite. We got Jonacide in the house. We got Incognito. We had somebody in expert from Twitch. My brain just went blank there. You can tell I'm older Gen Z. I'm like Twitch. It's Twitch. And we are on Twitch. Order of Velvet Bite right now is live on Rumble, YouTube, Twitch. It's also streaming live on the Substack and the Patreon page, which has a whole slew of content for paid subscribers. Substack, you can only do it for $8 a month. I might lower that. But Patreon, there's different levels. You can go over to the Patreon and, so, of course, support the show. 2, 3, 5, 8, 12. There's a whole bunch of different levels there. And that is simply patreon.com/CW/Order of Velvet Bite. Or you could probably just type in Order of Velvet Bite over at patreon.com. And of course, the Substack is Melissa Dawn Harris. Actually, that's wrong. I changed it. It's orderofvelvetbite.substack.com. So just go to the website. It's all there at melissadonharris.com. And the reason I did melissadonharris.com this time instead of a name is just in case I changed direction or the show evolved. It could always just be under my name. But yeah, I changed the URL of the Substack. I changed everything to just Order of Velvet Bite, just to make it easy. So if you type in Order of Velvet Bite anywhere, I should pop up. It's a unique enough name. When I had Gen X News, if you typed in Gen X News, like tons of stuff would pop up. It just wasn't unique enough. So there's that. Now, wow, it's been really weird with the news. And I generally wanted to do this show, more conspiracy or spiritual, like Spiritual Sundays, vampires. I didn't want to get into this stuff, but I thought, we really got to cover this stuff because there's some spells, there's some magical work going on here, in my opinion. There's some wizardry happening. And people always fall for the spell. People are always under the zombie witch doctor spell. And I think it's because we don't really, we're so focused in the physical world and with who gets what, and who's doing what, and fighting and arguing over trivial stuff. We just don't know how to tell where this stuff is coming from. Like we just can't do it. And I thought, let's go over some of these things. We've discussed this before on shows like, if you go on the YouTube channel, you can find them. They talk about break the spell, break the ritual, break how to do it. Chase Hughes has a channel where he talks about mind control. And so we're going to talk about how it's playing out right now. We're going to go back to certain, I'll call them spells. They might call them narratives or scripts that they write. But what kind of narratives are playing out and how it's not just simply one storyline. It's like a whole bunch of storylines all in one, like a whole bunch of storylines happening all at once that people have crafted out there. And of course, this storyline and narrative is going to surround Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk. And more specifically, this recent alleged, I have to say alleged, although I don't think it's fake, hiring of an assassin to do an assassination attempt on Candace Owens' life. And I kind of have a burner account where every once in a while I'll check out Twitter and I can see all the propaganda, all the smear campaign, all the crazy, all the bots. And I can compare that to what Candace is doing and saying, and Candace is being solid. She's grounded and solid in who she is and what information she has, and she's just laying out the information. Boom, boom, boom. And you can tell the bots and the crazy people and the people who are on scripts, they just keep spewing this stuff out. But I think there's other elements to this, like beyond just Candace is a victim. I think there's a whole bunch of different elements to this. So we're going to go over some elements like the smear campaign against Candace as a control element as well, whether she knows it or not, and different things like the appeal to authority, false psychological diagnosis, Project Mockingbird, also like this idea of splitting into different realities and those realities come from the mind. They're literally created by the mind and projected out, which is why they create narratives in the first place. So we tell the story in our mind and we help them project that out into the world. And it's so complicated now, or it feels so complicated now, because there's so many people to control and there's so many different narratives. And I think it's easier when you have a smaller population to contain that narrative and say what you want to be. But once different populations grow, it becomes more difficult. So like there's this idea that they can bring immigrants in, right? And it creates chaos for the population, which is true. And that gives them some power because they demoralize. And by they, I mean the elites, the powerful, the people who run all the government and have all the money and control the banks. It kind of, they have a power over people, but it also provides chaos in a cohesive thinking. And I think it makes it more difficult for them to actually do propaganda. So there's pros and cons to it. It's worked in the past, and a lot of these things have worked in the past because they had a smaller population and everyone believed the same thing. They're more cohesive, so they only had to have simple storylines. And now that we have like a lot of more diversity in thinking and different people and a larger population, I think it becomes more complicated and people are more skeptical because they've looked at different storylines. But that doesn't mean, I mean, all they need to do is really control 20 to 30% of the thinking. And now those 20 and 30% of people will go out. They don't have to control everybody. That's not necessary. You don't have to control it way everybody's thinking. You just have to control 20, 30% of the population. And you just have to create the narrative and control the most powerful actors, the most influential. And then those 20 to 30% will control everybody else, not even intentionally, just by what they believe and the narratives in their head. They'll control everybody else just naturally. It'll just happen. Everybody will start falling into line because they're afraid to speak out. So just remember that. They only have to control a certain amount of the population. They don't have to control everybody. And the rest of the people will do the work for them. They'll shame people. They'll lie. They'll put out so much information. It makes the truth confusing. And sometimes all you have to do is just go sit back for a while, let things calm down, and then you can kind of see it when things settle. Right now, there's tons of chaos. There's tons of crazy. There's tons of nuts out there. So first, we're going to go into, of course, looking online, looking at some of the tactics that they're doing to Candace, but I'm going to show you some of we're going to go into the browser and look at some of the posts that Candace has made, and we'll talk about what's going on. And if you don't know what's going on with Charlie Kirk, I'm not going to explain the Charlie Kirk assassination and everything about it and what happened and what the theories are. You can kind of look that up, but we obviously know that there's something fake ass going on with Charlie Kirk and all this stuff. They've put out a spell, they've put out their ritual, they put out their narrative. And what they've done is as soon as they assassinated Charlie Kirk, they rolled that narrative out within the first week because they have to, because that's when we're emotional. That's where we're traumatized. So that first week after Charlie Kirk, we're emotional, we've been traumatized, we're upset. That is the time you roll it out. You roll everything, you get it done quickly. You like click, 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 because that's when we're most vulnerable. We're most emotional. We're not thinking logically. And that's the easiest time to manipulate us, to get us attached to their narratives and storylines. Though, however, it doesn't seem to it doesn't seem to work as good as it used to. But that was why they this all ushered out fast. It's a false flag. The same thing happened October 7th. Just remember that. This is that period after the trauma, after the drama. They have all these clips ready, by the way. They have all these actors ready. They have all this stuff ready. They have it all planned, and they roll it out from a central casting, staging. I don't know what you want to call it, because we're traumatized. We're all confused and we don't know what's going on. And they're like, we do. We're over here. We've got the narrative. We'll solve the problem for you. See, look, easy peasy. We're the authorities. Trust the FBI. Trust this crazy pastor, this evangelical pastor that's preaching on stage. Total propaganda. So that's what they did. And now we're into this really chaotic stage where there's actually people out there who smelled a rat, and they're trying to figure it out. And that's what Candace is, from what we know, doing. We're going to talk about how Candace might be. I'm going to talk different levels here, but we're going to first start out with the Candace Owens stuff. So let's go into my browser. And before I do, remember, if you're here for the first time, whether you're coming after the stream or before, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel or go follow on Substack. That's orderofvelvetbite.substack.com. You can go to the website melissadonharris.com. All the links are right there. But let's go over here. Oh, what happened to that? I had it all set up and it switched. Well, we'll set it up for you. I had it all set up to share in my browser, and it cleared it. So we'll do a screen share, and we'll set that up right now. Yeah, let's share some Twitter stuff here. And there we go. That works. Perfect. We'll go into the Brandon Tatum, because Brandon Tatum's very pro a certain country over in Israel. We're going to go over to Candace Owens. And we're going to look at the original tweet that she talked about, that she was going, what do you mean there's no results for Candace? Give me a break, people. So she's done a lot of updating. There's a lot of stuff, but let's go down to her original declaration. And it's right here. So it says, urgent. 2 days ago, I was contacted by a high-ranking employee of the French government. After determining this person's position and proximity to the French couple, I have deemed the information they gave me to be credible enough to share publicly in the event that something happens. In short, this person claims that the Macrons have executed upon and paid for my assassination. Yes, you read that correctly. More specifically, that the green light was given to a small team in the National Gendarmerie Intervention Group. A lot of people had trouble with that gendarmerie because it's French word. It was funny. I am told there is one Israeli that is on this assassination squad, and the plans were formalized. Again, this person provided concrete proof that they are well placed within the French government apparatus. Further to this point, this person claims that Charlie Kirk's assassin trained with the French Legion 13th Brigade with multi-state involvement. Journalist Xavier Poussard's life is also at risk, and Xavier Xavier. Xavier Poussard was the one who originally did the story. He's the original French journalist that really started to do a puff piece about Brigitte Macron, saying how good she was, and discovered all this crazy stuff, and spent years, really thorough journalism, exposing that Brigitte essentially is as a transgender man, and had literally been grooming Macron since he was 14 and she was like 39. And it gets even deeper and more disturbing. If you watch the Candace series, you will be able to see everyone smears Candace for this and says there's no evidence. That's typical propaganda from the system. right? Typical propaganda in the system. But if you actually go to the source and their information in his journalism, it is so well researched. I can't tell you all of it because it's too long. You have to watch the series and see. Now, yes, they're laying it out in a narrative, but they provide enough strong facts. And when you look at it all and you look at Bridgie and you look at all the pictures and the sources and the confusion, it's like, no, oh, dude, no, that's a man. Like, that's a manly man. I can't, So anyways, that's who Xavier Possard is. His life is at threat, she says. And she says the head of the state of France apparently wants us both dead and has authorized professional units to carry this out. Now, guys, I'll say I don't know why they would do Charlie Kirk first and then her, but apparently the other head, allegedly, that's what she says, of Turning Point USA after Charlie had died, warned her that she was supposed to be the one who died. So I don't know what's going on here. If they were basically having problems with Charlie Kirk and it was creating problems, so they decided to, cover two stones with one bird, threaten her and get rid of him because they needed to get rid of him for some other reason. I don't know. But that's kind of implied. She says, to the brave official in France who did this because they were so moved by the evil of Charlie's public execution to risk their own life, may God bless you truly. Let all be revealed. I agree. Let all be revealed. And there's people in the post saying what Candace just revealed. They show you that, the French are known for being like lethal assassins and carrying this out. You can go look at this stuff big time. And I know a lot of us, and I was saying this to my husband the other day, I know a lot of us think like, oh, the French, it's like Inspector Clouseau. I know maybe that's part of the propaganda. They want you to think they're moronic. No. Look, these are the French. They literally guillotine their royal family. Okay? They have a really high level intelligence agency that might even be better than Mossad, and they definitely work with Mossad and probably work with the CIA. It's all global intelligence. And what they do oftentimes, if America's having a problem with somebody that they don't like the CIA, they will often go to Canada and say, Canada, can you do the spying on American citizens so they don't get pinned with it? Or they'll go to France. They'll go to another country because they're all interlinked so they can make it look like another country's doing it. Oh, dear me. But they actually call for it. Canada does the same thing on its citizens. They would get maybe a CIA or an American to spy on a Canadian citizen so it doesn't look like they're doing it. This happens all the time. I hate to break it to everybody. And so we're already in a global world with the illusion of countries. Different laws for the people, but the elites all have one thing that they do. So let's just kind of slowly get that one out of the way. Now, what I'm seeing with Candace Owens, of course, is all the bots. Like, we can go back and find them. They're easy to find. They're hanging around like slugs, anyways, all over here. And all you have to do is go and look in the comments. She's updated. Alexander Dugin. That's not the one I wanted to play. It was the guy who founded Telegram. He was arrested by the French and held. Like, they were like totally like they wanted to Pavel Durov. There he is. This is the Telegram founder that was arrested by France. And this girl just said, I Googled French secret intelligence service assassinations and the results are freaking wild. Here we go. Hit squad of French secret agents hired for contract killing. That was back in 2021. French intelligence agents charged in alleged murder plot, 2020. That was Associated Press. This one was from 2025 in May. Mossad's accomplices, how Israel relied on foreign intelligence agencies to organize its killing campaigns. That was the French intelligence agency. This one is from Congo, Brazzaville. This is 2019. French ex-spy suspected of Congo-Brazilian plot, shot dead in the Alps. Like, there's tons of these spies out there doing international, like they're like a crazy ass psycho James Bond, but they're French. It's like, and they're not Inspector Clouseau. I'll tell you that. But Pavel says, after reviewing everything Charlie Kirk has ever said about Macron's France, I find Candace's info about French involvement in his death entirely plausible. Charlie even called for 300% tariffs on France until the charges against me were dropped because France arrested him. And they wanted to take over Telegram and he wouldn't let them. Real dirt. He landed in France and they moved in. The French are lethal. And then Pavel also says, well-connected people have told me that the French intelligence services are not exactly unknown for assassinations, a point supported by public sources. All those articles I just read to you guys. So let's not let's not it's the demons. Maybe the French are the demons. I don't know. It could be the demons. Kirby, hi, how are you doing? Thank you. It's not vampires tonight. We're skipping Thursday, remember guys. It's Thanksgiving. Have fun meal with your family. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not big into celebrating stuff. There's too many holidays back to back. It stresses me out. So I might just go to Five Guys and like just do a triple burger without the bun and go totally, carnivore and do that. But this is serious stuff. And of course, the people, there's three things I've seen happening, and you guys could probably in the comments tell me more that you see. There's going to be an appeal to authority. They're like about these assassinations, like, oh, the FBI. How could you dare oppose the FBI's official narrative? Well, they're all in on it. There's going to be a false psychological diagnosis of Candace, and that's the one I want to talk about. I was literally on Threads, and people are saying that Candace is because she's claimed this, and it's either their little minds can't think of it, or someone's told them that she's psychotic. Told them that she's psychotic, and then they just repeat it because they don't know, or they know she's telling the truth, and there are all these bots and there are all these informants and there's these people online who are spewing out psychological diagnosis. Jordan Peterson did this way back when people were saying Christ is king. He started to diagnose people online who have secret identities as psychopaths. He started to say anyone who is saying Christ is king has narcissistic personality disorder and psychopathy. Literally, this crazy ass psychologist from Canada who is a drug addict and totally lies and bibble babbles bullshit narratives. And his daughter is addicted to plastic surgery, is diagnosing unprofessionally people online as psychopaths because they said Christ is king. Well, they're doing the same thing here, except for now because she's putting out in the sunlight that there's an assassination attempt on her too. They're saying she's a narcissist. She thinks everything's about her. I've heard people say, I've heard her speak in the third person. And usually when she's joking. That means she's a narcissist. She has schizophrenia. Okay, well, they're just throwing out insults and hoping they stick, because none of the things that Candace is doing describe the symptoms of any of these mental health issues. And besides, we could talk about the problems with the DSMV and their ever-growing list of mental health problems that aren't mental health problems. We've literally evolved into a shithole of unprofessional bullshit and just smear campaigns. So they're using psychological diagnosis as a weapon, not as a tool to aid people. So they're calling her psycho, lunatic, crackhead. But if you pay attention, they're being erratic, they're insulting, they're the ones who are the grifters and the parasites. Candace's message is saying solid, fact-based, and really consistent. Now, that doesn't mean Candace isn't involved or doesn't have a narrative that she's pushing for somebody. It just means she's dealing in fact. She definitely has connections. Her husband's father is like in with the House of Lords. Like, he's well connected with a British power structure. So she definitely has connections going on. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is also for people who don't think that they're not being brainwashed because they have the internet and they're not watching MSNBC. I'm sorry, but they've taken over all the internet a long time ago. They've taken over podcasts, most of the big numbers, including Candace. She's a big number, so you have to be suspicious. But most of these big podcasts are people that are probably from the system. They're all actors. They're all pushing out bullshit narratives. And it's Project Mockingbird, possibly on both sides, but definitely on the smears against Candace, it's Project Mockingbird. And they're repeating things like, they're not just psychologically diagnosing, they're repeating the message. You see person after person saying the exact same thing on Twitter. So you see it over and over again. Candace is crazy. Candace is nuts. Candace is a liar. Candace hates Charlie. Candace accused his wife of this. And none of them are true, but they repeat them and they repeat them and they repeat them. They're scripts that they write. You see it on TikTok videos. They're scripts that they're writing. And I can tell some of the people are just staring blankly at their camera like, did you know that Candace Owens, blah, 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 blah. You can tell they're reading a script. I don't care what technology they use to make their eyes look like they're not looking away, but you can feel that they're reading a script because it's all the same stuff over and over and over, right? That's Project Mockingbird. But it's on the internet. So don't think the internet isn't full of propaganda and brainwashing and MK Ultra, because it is 100%. Now, we want to get to Brandon Tayden. There has been some issues. He's really upset. He's very pro Zionism, and I think they're paying him. But he came out in defense of Candace because him and Candace used to run the nonprofit Blexit together, and I think in it was either 2023 or 2021, they sold it to TPUSA. So a TPUSA bought it and absolved it into its organization. So it's no longer running as their nonprofit at all. They're not doing it. So they had started Blexit together, which is kind of like Black people of America moving away from voting Democrat. But there's been an evolution where Candace is like, yeah, no, the whole bird is bad. Left, right, center, they're all controlled by all these interconnected intelligence agencies and government and elite people and banking systems. It's not just one party. It's much worse than we ever thought. And then I would say it gets much worse than that. Okay. So anyways, he's very Zionist and his podcast is not as successful as Candace. He used to be a police officer. I don't think he was a police officer for very long, but he started this and I think he might be on their pay. I don't know, but he's come out in defense of Candace. So we're going to go have a look at that video and we're going to see exactly what he said. I don't want that one. I want the full one. Let's look at the full video of what he said. We'll go down here. I think it's somewhere on. There's the full video. Okay, here we go.
The assassination attempt on her life is insane.
I have to tell you guys, in my gut of guts, there is something unbelievably. I just look at Brigitte Macron and I am telling you, you are looking at an utter psychopath in my view. There is something dark. There is something deep there. I see it in the eyes, in the performance of this all, that the response in France has been to start to harass people who came out and tried to tell the story, to effectively ruin their lives, to go after their finances, to debank them. The strange circumstances of some people who have tried to touch this story, and we've covered this also in our series, that wound up dead.
It doesn't matter right, wrong, or indifferent. They have to investigate this. They have to investigate this. And I think that if it is found to be true and the proof prevails, which I'm convinced after talking to Candace and the stuff that we talked about.
So obviously he reached out, as a friend should, because they've known each other for a long time. He talked to Candace. She's presented him stuff and he's realized that she's not fucking around. Like, she's not joking, that this is real. And so he's covered this in his show. We'll continue.
I'm convinced. Then that means that there should be dire consequences for the French government and whoever else was involved, the Macrons or whatever. Dire consequences. Like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you get notifications anytime I go live or make a video. Make sure you still subscribe to this channel. And also, if you want to message me, you have comments, you have questions, people been with me, Candace Owens, every day of the week. When are you going to talk about Candace Owens? When are you going to talk about Candace Owens? Well, people may not realize Candace Owens is not a social media influencer to me. Candace Owens is still a really good friend of mine. I still love her to death, even though we disagree on a few things. I know she disagrees with me. We disagree. Friends can disagree. Me and my wife disagree. I'm not going to divorce my wife. And Candace and I disagree. She's not going to stop being my friend, even though I don't like some stuff that she say, and she don't like stuff that I say. But anyway, this is bigger than Israel.
I'm glad he is that level mature to say that, and I'm glad he's covering this. Interesting stuff.
And all of the stuff. If somebody trying to kill Candace, that's a problem to me. That is a crazy problem to me. And this is not something I just read on the internet, because I text Candace, because I got her number. I talked to Candace. I text her. I said, well, that's crazy. I'm praying for you, sis. What is going on here? And she pretty much told me, and I'm not going to say what our private message was, but she pretty much alluded to the fact that she got evidence that they did some little shenanigans over there in France, and they hired somebody to kill her. Now, am I shocked that somebody would hire somebody to kill Candace or anybody that's extremely popular? I'm not shocked. They tried to kill Trump. They killed Charlie. And I would assume that people that don't like her, she's talking about Bridget Macron got a wang, and they probably didn't like it. This video is brought to you by TatumStore.com. TatumStore.com, ladies and gentlemen, Black Friday is here. Pull up and tweeted at like 2 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast the other day. It says urgent. I hope I can read it. It's kind of small. It says Tuesday,
okay,
2 days ago.
We're not going to cover that. I think every 2 minutes he's going to try to sell his crap, which is annoying. And I've already covered her official one, so we can go past this.
Government apparatus. And so, with her saying this, it's insane, right? I mean, one or two things are true. Either this is completely made up, or Candace is on to something. And if this is completely made up, this would be the craziest thing in world history. And the latter, which I believe is more plausible, is that they actually did this. Then, brother, the American government, I don't care how much you don't like Candace, I don't care how much you've been trashing the American government and the FBI, they got to do something. And I'm going to tell you what they will do. It doesn't matter right, wrong, or indifferent. They have to investigate this. They have to investigate this. And
so I'm just going to pause it there. Because like I told you, they're all connected. It's all one global world already in with the banks, and they do hits for each other. So I don't expect them to really investigate it. I mean, they've got Kash Patel at the helm, and he's an idiot. He's too busy suing people for calling his girlfriend a honeypot and taking jets on FBI's dollar to go bang his girlfriend, and then hiring SWAT teams to protect her. Like, she's supposed to be some country music. Like, Kash Patel must be some kind of front stooge idiot. Saying someone says he's not an officer anymore, so why have that in the background? I think that's just his brand, that he was the officer Tatum, and people know him as a former police officer. So I think that's his brand that he's always been with. So that's why he's called the officer Tatum. So anyways, I don't expect much from this, because they're all connected and they all do dirty work. They might try to shuffle this one away and then figure something else what to do, but the cat's out of the bag, and they're probably just gonna keep smearing her like she's crazy and say, nope, she's crazy, or oh, we don't know. But I don't think she's crazy, and I'll get to what I think is happening towards the end. So stick around, don't go away. Remember to subscribe. I'll do the Brandon Tatum thing. Subscribe, hit that button, thumbs up, subscribe. Yeah, go buy my dick pills. I don't have any dick pills, sorry to sell you. I don't have any substitutes to sell you, but hey, you can go over to Substack and subscribe there, and all you'll get is articles and free and podcasts and stuff like that. And same with Patreon. Order a Velvet Bite. But let's keep listening to Brandon.
I think that if it is found to be true and the proof prevails, which I'm convinced after talking to Candace and the stuff that we talked about, I'm convinced, then that means that there should be dire consequences for the French government and whoever else was involved, the Macrons or whatever, dire consequences. I'm talking about the American government should go after them like never before. And it's not just because it's Candace. Of course, I'm biased to a certain degree. If any foreign government plans and tries to execute an assassination on an American citizen for their political beliefs, that's a problem.
I guarantee you they've done it before. I guarantee you this has happened over and over and over again. This is like Tuesday for all these people in these intelligence agencies. Okay? This is why they want psychopaths. This is why they hire crazy psychopaths or they MK Ultra them from the time they're little to be this way. Because you have to, because they're going to get you to do their dirtiest of dirty works. They're going to get you to be a James Bond times whatever. You know, that's what they do. I just feel like everyone's like really naive about what's going to happen, and it'll just be another fantasy narrative, in my opinion. Fantasy narrative. And you guys can tell me what you think. If they're going to do an investigating, say yes, say nay. If you don't think so, if you think the American system will come up and do it the honest way, if you think that's going to happen, I don't see that happening. There's too much at risk. There's war. There's all these big picture stuff over all of our head that they're running, that it doesn't matter who dies as long as the system keeps pushing out the crazy stuff that they push. And obviously, I don't want that to be the case. I want people to have justice, but I don't think the system's going to do that. Lucas says fantasy narrative. Yeah, always fantasy narrative. Like 100%. 100%. So let's finish up here and see what he says, and then we'll move on to some other clips. We're splitting into, I was saying that we're splitting into two different realities, but honestly, I think we're splitting into a bunch of different timelines and realities. And if you stay up in the reality here where all these psychopaths are, you're just going to lose yourself. It's going to be soul crushing, and they're just going to drain all your energy. Yeah. Lucas also adds, the system never stops. It's a psychopathic dead entity. Yeah, and it sucks us dry. That's why I say if you tap into this, that's why I'll tap into X just to see stuff, and then I have to go on, or I get pulled into like I don't even go on there. I like I said, I used to have 40,000, 46,000 followers, and I just shut it down. I was like, this is crazy. This is going to affect my mental health. And it's true. It's why everybody's mentally ill, because they're tapping into this one system on the internet that's going to turn into a giant AI psychopath. And they're wondering why they're exhausted. Anyways, let's keep going.
Let's get to the second part of the tweet, because I think it was more to that. Let's put it on the screen. Further to this point, this person claims that Charlie Kirk's assassin, trained with the French Legion 13's brigade with multiple state involvement. Journalist Xavier Broussard, life is also at risk. This is deadly serious. The head of the state of France apparently wanted us both dead and has authorized professional units to carry it out. I ask for every person to retweet this and share this. I do not know who in the American government can be trusted, since this source claimed our leaders are aware. But I have more specific information, which is definitely verifiable, should they care to reach out to me. To the brave official in France who did this because they were so moved by the evil of Charlie's public execution to risk their own lives. May God bless you. I wonder, y'all, what do y'all think in the comment section?
Well, I think, okay, so that's obviously Candace's narrative. We'll have to wait next week to see what Candace really says. She says some other stuff. I will actually read one of the tweets that she has posted about 5 or 6 hours ago. But I think there are people who are even in these industries who are risking their asses to speak out. And remember, I said Candace will have an in because she's connected through her husband. So let's keep going here.
Do you think Candace Owens fell off something and bumped her head and she just came up with this? Or you
Mm, I don't I don't think Candace would have come up at this by herself. I'll get into what I think about it in the third section of the show. We're going to have a third section where we talk about Candace Owens as possible controlled opposition, whether she knows it or not. We'll talk about that there's something bigger going on here above us. Even though we think it's a war between us and other countries, we'll talk about it. Stay tuned.
think there's some there? There's some more tweets. Let's put the other tweet on the screen. It says, when everything is said and done and the public learns that the Macrons allegedly moved $1.5 million for my assassination, how will the world respond? Now, my only thing here is that I hope that somebody in the government in France isn't paid to deceive Candace. Like this is what my fear is. And I'm gonna talk to her about this later, which she seems very convinced that this is verifiable. She says she has evidence. So she's convinced. My fear was that it is easier to deceive, manipulate, and it's easier to pay to destroy your platform than it is to try to kill you.
Okay, that's a really good point. Because they could be trying to make her paranoid. So she shuts up. So that's a really good point because there's all these different levels of turncoats and spies and agents and double and triple agents. So it's a really good point that he's actually making.
Because killing you is a bigger ramification than somebody hacking you or paying somebody to create a false story to give you. Now, Candace Owens will have the benefit of the doubt if somebody in good faith gave her all this information. She believed them in good faith. But it will be incredibly embarrassing if the French government hired somebody to fake like they're a government official, giving them all the information that they need in order to put this plot out here to try to make Candace.
The only thing that makes it a little more credible that it's not is there's already been an assassination. And this kind of probably harkens back to the period in the 60s where there was a revolutionary thing going on where many American figures, JFK, MLK, RFK, Malcolm X were assassinated. And those are the ones we know in public. There's probably many more that died that were axed out that we don't even know about, that were just minor players. So that's the only thing I would say that, makes me think, well, you never know. They just got caught. But we do have to take what he's saying into consideration.
This look bad. I can see them doing that strategically, and it's probably worth a lot less than $1.5 million for somebody to do it. So that's my only fear for Candace, is that somebody would try to manipulate her into doing that. But brother, if this is real, this is crazy. If the French government had anything to do with Charlie's death, this is insane. And I say the same thing for Israel. I have no evidence whatsoever, and I don't think it's even plausible. It's possible, but it's not plausible that Israel will get Charlie Kirk killed. But if somehow our government investigation finds that there's any trace to any of this, whether it's Candace or Charlie, America has to act. This will be the breaking point for me in American politics and trust in the government if they would not act if this becomes true and verified.
Okay. It's interesting that there is always a breaking point. But Maxie, my dog wants to come over. But here, the thing is about this is that Candace is pretty thorough. And there's a lot of smear campaigns to make her look crazy, and they're using this to make her look crazy. So it could be like this could be the plot. Remember, these leaders, all these people on the stage are professional liars, and they're always trying to, make up crazy narratives. They're always thinking about ways to confuse people, to confuse the narrative, to create up falsities. They've got it pre-planned how they're going to play everything out. You can see this in abusive people in relationships. So they could come at this from so many different angles. So it's interesting for him to bring this up. But Candace is also pretty thorough on her information. So I hope this week that I'm guaranteeing this week that she's taking off, that she's going to really dig down deep. And remember, she does have connections as well. Lucas Williams says corporation. It's in the name, corpse, corporation. Yeah, no kidding. And he also says AI has already caused psychosis in people. Absolutely. The internet. That's why we have teenagers that are so depressed now, is because they look at Nick Fuentes, and I think he's an op. I think he's been groomed by somebody to be where he is. I really do. But he the way he talks is like everything's on the internet. Like he'll say, I've never seen you say this on Twitter. And you're talking about a boomer or maybe a Gen Xer who says, I was always in support of this politician. And they're saying, I don't see it on Twitter. He's like, dude, I'm 45. Not everything in my life, in my support of politics, has been on Twitter. Like, get a life. The younger people don't understand that. They think everything's on the internet. And that's why, they're going to jump right into this AI stuff. 100%. They are. So we're going to end that one there with Brandon. Really good. And I think that's a good point, and it's a strong point they bring up. He kind of gets on my nerves with his Israel. It's not about Israel. It's about the Zionist stuff. It's not about Jews. It's about the Zionism, because that's supported by the globalists. 100%. And they do all sorts of crazy psyops to mess with people, just like October the 7th. So Candace has also said, this is on the Egyptian plains, someone directly involved in the booking process has confirmed to me that our Egyptians who flew into Provo ahead of Charlie Kirk's assassination, they flew planes in, were staying at La Quinta Inn and Suites in Orem, Utah. So she wants to know if everybody has information on that one. And these planes could be linked. One of the things, and I'm going to play some video clips from Owen Benjamin, because he mentioned some issues he has with Candace and some warnings he has for Candace. We're going to go into those video clips. I have 3 of them. They're 2 minutes each. Back to back they go. But yeah, it's all convoluted, and it's interesting that it's all happening now. People are trying to say it's because Candace is trying to get information, and that's the smear. She's crazy. She's nuts because maybe she's over the target. She's showing stuff. But there's also the criticism, and this is what makes it confusing, is they could shut her down anytime they want. They don't need to. They don't need to assassinate. They don't need to do any of that stuff. They just could shut her down. Let's go over here and
talk and give interviews sometimes. Spycraft sounds very similar to acting craft. Very similar. Right down to, different types of disguises and stuff, like just to sell a character. I'm like, this might as well be an acting class. All right. So I did a post about Candace Owens, and this is advice for her and why I think she's being used. The current narrative is impossible. Tyler Robinson could not have taken apart that gun in the time frame. 30-06 could not have been the round that hit him. And those texts do not sound believable, plus hundreds of other problems. That's obvious. And I don't care if Sean Ryan said, didn't challenge the guy about I know I've shot 30-06s. Everybody knows that isn't what that looks like. And then people immediately start arguing with you about, well, sometimes they don't have an exit wound. I'm like, where did I say anything about an exit wound? It's about the amount of energy, right? It's like saying you got hit by a school bus going 80 miles an hour and you're okay. No, never 0%. At that speed, with the size of that round, you have a lot of energy. Now, if it goes where the bullet goes in, many times can actually look pretty small, especially a full metal jacket, 5.56, like NATO AR-15 round, like some. Sometimes they look like a pencil, like you got stabbed with a pencil. Even a 30-06, it might not be the biggest
Sorry. My mic was off. What I'm saying, the reason I played Owen here is because he's been canceled. He was a big comedian on Joe Rogan, dated Krista Ricci, was in Hollywood. He was canceled around the COVID time because he was speaking out against COVID. So he's speaking out against that. And so it is like I'm unmuted, so there must be a lag. There must be a lag because I'm unmuted now. So here's the thing is he knows there's easier ways to be canceled. So we'll just keep playing him because he knows there's easier ways to be canceled and taken off other than assassination. So if the assassination thing is real, there's got to be something else to it.
Entry wound. And if it goes right through them without really slowing down at all, the exit wound might be 2 or 3 times bigger, but nothing crazy. But that's with that's like a pure soft tissue contact with nothing's when the bullets, it's kind of like driving a car into a
Okay, so we're gonna play the second part here.
I'm just kidding about that one, but you know what I mean. I am an expert at a few things: piano, wizardry, comedy, right? And I do it in an authentic way. I'm not an expert wizard. I'm an expert at showing wizardry. And so I think it's pretty obvious that the powers that be, quote unquote, that she's claiming to be against are fine with her being in the public eye. Why? Okay. The issue I have with Candace Owens is the Egyptian plane narrative sounds crazy when you try to explain it to someone else. And I'm caught up. I've listened to every one of her podcasts. I want to know what is happening in that realm. And she does a good job explaining it if you have that much time. But if you try to explain it to someone else, you say like a story about a Delaware office on Kings Road and transponders, Erica Kirk having her own Egyptian watcher plane, rental plates, an audit, like people just look at you like you're crazy. And then what happens is you go, oh, normies are just stupid. No, that's not what it is. So Macron is trying to kill her with Israel using the French Foreign Legion Egyptian spy planes because his wife has a dick. Now, I'm not saying that's not true on some level, because the issue when the whole world becomes actors, yeah, you're going to get like plot lines. And like many times you look at someone and be like, that's fake. Yeah, it's fake because everything they do is fake. That's why they were banned from society. You know, like, of course it's because they're.
When he's saying banned from society, he's saying historically actors were always banned from society because they were seen as faking reality. And that's devious. And they were seen as promiscuous and all sorts of problems. And he's not incorrect. Acting was never deemed a good thing a long time ago.
They're in a nonsense world. They're not capable of reacting, you know, with any sense of being grounded in reality. So yes, that is possibly happening. All right. I'm just commenting. Okay. I'm just commenting on how that sounds to normal people. Try this. Ever shoot a 30-06? There's no way that round hit.
Okay. So we'll watch this one.
All of them. Like, and you guys know that, not Rogan, I mean, there was other people. I literally don't remember, but like the people that right now are these mega podcasts, you know, like Theo Von. Theo Von is open for me. Theo Von was a guest on Why and They Laugh years ago. Theo Von has been kicking around Hollywood forever, and much love to Theo. This isn't throwing shade. I'm showing you that like they can make you look like you went crazy and you vanished into nothing in about a month. Now, if you're authentic and you have real connection with people, you can survive that, but you're not going to be like a famous guy. They can totally just do that. They wouldn't even have to out bigger than Bert Kreischer. Yeah, of course. You guys remember? And it's like, look how you just do a narrative and that's it. So, and they don't even have to do that to Candace Owens. They just don't have to allow her to go to number one. And what they aren't in control of the algorithms. They can't put their finger on the scales. Who's going to catch them? Trump? Yeah, Crowder was bigger and Rogan. The only bigger ones I remember is Crowder and Rogan. Yeah, Crowder and Rogan were bigger, but yeah, I got it was like, it was huge. And then it's just like canceled off that. You're not allowed on Patreon. You're not allowed on PayPal. You're not allowed on Twitter for 5 years. I was kicked off iTunes. I was kicked out. It's like, so why don't they kick her off? Now, this is why I think. Look at Theo now. He wants your life so bad. Can't stop bringing you up. Much love to Theo, man. Yeah, and I'm not saying I don't have problems or like I just want it, life and all this stuff. I'm like sore as fuck today. I don't know. I'm crushing. I'm not going to it's like you're an actor if you pretend to be humble, right? That's why I don't do it. No, it's like he should. I mean, I'm crushing. It's insane. You were huge back then, BB? Yeah, but huge in that world. I think I'm better now. I think that
Okay, so he doesn't actually ever get to why he thinks. You can go watch his thing because I'm going to get into in a bit why I think. And of course, we're in a world. Let's talk about technology here and the wizardry and the magic of technology. We're in a world that is, maybe they're realizing that it's a totally different world. And warfare is totally different. Like way back when someone had to put their artillery in certain locations for war, they had like a 5-kilometer area that they could kind of operate from where they could put stuff. They don't even have that anymore. It's more like a 25 to 40 kilometer area where they can they have to be distanced from the front because of drones, because of new technology. And it's pushing war. It's changing the way that they do different battles and different strategies. And so psychological warfare and this kind of strange warfare from a distance on the internet it's huge. They can do things technologically. We're entering an era where they can, get bots to trash your website. They can funnel money, different things. They're using all these different corporations. They can use fundraisers online. They can run a stream that's a fundraiser and people it looks like people are donating and then they have a big donor, but it's actually money laundering. They can interrupt your website. They can do viruses. There's so much psychological damage they can do to populations. They can affect populations' sexual identities. There's so much stuff they're doing on the internet, and I don't think people understand how devious it is and the switch. And I think this is one element of it where it's things happening from all different angles. And we did talk about that they're professional liars. I don't know. It's Candace's numbers that always gets me. Like, I'm like, someone's propping her up and wants her to be there, whether she knows it or not, or she's being told it or not. Somebody wants her there. And she hasn't ever done any advertising though, by the way. So that's interesting, but they could still shut her down. And France has, I will say, they have attacked her website. When she was launching some of these live streams from her site, they totally attacked her. So they've done those things. They've done different elements. They're definitely doing smear campaigns. And they're doing this appeal to authority for other people who have big names and, all the professionals. They get out to say, Candace is crazy. They've done the diagnosis. They've been doing it all along, ever since she's been fired from Daily Wire. They're doing Project Mockingbird. They're doing all this stuff. And they've pushed out the narrative about Charlie and it's a crazy liberal. Who knows what narrative they were going to try to push out on Candace? We don't know. She's out at this, whether it's true or not. Are they lying? Are they making her paranoid? Did Andrew Colvett, when he said that to her, that she was supposed to be the one, was he planted to make her paranoid? Who knows? Some of her audience members could be these kind of people from all over. We don't know because they're faceless. So there could be like psychopathic spies in her audience planting shit and doing stuff. I mean, there could be people in her book club planted. They don't even have to show up. It's just a different realm. It's just a different place, and you just don't know what kind of demon is coming through. And so the other element is I think if you go and look back in time, and this is an important part of my speech, so listen up, and you can disagree with me and you can put it in the comments, but if you go back in time and let's go to World War I, and we had England with Russia and France and Germany. Who else was Germany with? Say probably. Who was the Axis with Germany? I took this in college. Um, it was Germany with German Empire, Austro-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. The quadruple and Kingdom of Bulgaria. So it wasn't the Japan Italy thing. That was World War II. But you've got these different empires, right? And they're factioning. But who on the Ally side, who got trashed? Who came out of World War I? Who was the only country that came out intact? England, right? Even though France too. England and France, but Russia was on their side. But remember, the Kaiser, the King of England, Kaiser is the King of Germany, the King of England, and the Tsar are cousins. They all came from Queen Victoria. They're all first cousins. But the only first cousin that came out was King George from England. The other two, the Kaiser gets abdicated and basically put into, what do you call it? Like isolation or whatever. I can't get the word right now. And of course, we know the Tsar and his whole family were executed. And that seems awfully suspicious because before that happened, the King of England probably knew, and he had the opportunity. He could have told the Tsar and his family to come to England for refuge, and he didn't. So something else is going on there, where there was an inner fight between different empires and different people in power, and there was somebody behind the kingdoms pushing that, and it was a setup. And oftentimes when we see a lot of this chaos and stuff, the elites are fighting amongst each other. And I don't necessarily mean king or queens. This could be a techno thing where they're trying to eliminate someone behind the scenes and they're using all these actors and pieces to do it. And there's a serious battle with the serious powers because they're like, okay, we want to consolidate things more. Who do we get rid of? And that's why these games and politics never pay off. You don't want to go up there and fight in that world. That's why I mean, like, we're splitting into different realities. This is their reality. And I think that they use people like Candace. She's useful for a narrative. And who knows what side she's pushing. There could be a side that's pushing against France, the elite powers that want to take over. There could be different secret shadowy factions. Remember, there's even above the Rothschild, there's 13 families that rule everything that come right from Rome. And there could be something going on here that we have no clue because it's a war amongst the elites. And maybe even some of them don't know. And they do things because they're sneaky, they're narcissistic, they're power hungry, they're empire hungry. We don't know all the players, but there's some battle. Like, we always look at the elites as they're globalists and they're cohesive. And I don't think that's necessarily true. And I think there's some kind of warring factor going on behind the scenes. And people like Candace are doing journalism, and they might think they're doing one way, but remember her father-in-law, let's go look up who George Farmer's, I'll tell you specifically because I can't remember offhand. Michael Farmer, he's a baron, okay? Michael Stale Farmer, that's George Farmer's father, and George Farmer's Candace's husband. He is a British businessman. He's the former treasurer of the Conservative Party and life peer in the House of Lords. He's active in combating family breakdown. He supported Brexit, and he's a devout born-again Christian. He was born in Kent, England, and he said he had a life of poverty and it was poor. His father, David S. Farmer, was a metal trades, was wounded in World War II and died at the age of 40 due to alcoholism. And he and his sister narrowly avoided removal from their mother's care because his mother was an alcoholic. Farmer was educated at Wantage Grammar School as a boarder. His mother died when he was 25 years old. Business career, he was a clerk at the London Metal Exchange. He spent most of his career in the city of London, trading of base metals, especially copper. He was a protege at the top of the metal trader in Manfred Kopelman. He left in 1989 to form the Metal and Commodity Company, trading company, a subsidiary of German metal trader Metagesellschaft. I don't know if I said that right. So he's big into metals. In 2000, he sold his trading company to Enron for $448 million and renamed his company Enron Metals. It's now called Sempra Metals. It's based out of London. Then after that, he took 2 years off to study the Bible. In 2005, he was a founding partner of the Red Kite Group of hedge funds, which provides mine finance and future investment opportunity for funds. In 2013, the firm returned over 50% on its metals funds. They're big into metal, copper, especially copper. It's really interesting. So in 2014, Farmer was created a life peer as Baron Farmer of Bishopgate in the city of London. In the House of Lords, he joined the Conservative benches as a politician. His maiden speech was about women's homelessness, domestic violence, and social exclusion. There we go. Farmer supported former leader David Cameron, who was against Brexit, ironically. So there's some interesting stuff. They're all involved in resources and stuff like that. So look, I'm just saying she's got an in. He is, I think he's a Zionist though. He said he supported Candace, but then he retracted it. But he does note that the plight of the civilians in Gaza is utterly appalling. Hello, Olivia. How are you doing over at Twitch? Thank you for watching at Twitch. We're relatively new. So there's always something going on with these guys. They're not a cohesive or intelligent and smart as we think they are. And you can go watch, I go watch Owen Benjamin. He's on a Rumble. Like, he used to be big. He used to have a huge podcast, and they canceled him. It would be easy to cancel Candace, but she's got connections, so she serves a purpose for some narrative. And we don't always know what those narratives are. And it'll be interesting to see. Let's go back here. I got some funny stuff to play before we leave too. We don't really know because everybody's involved in politics here. Everybody's linked to somebody else. This is a battle, and we're just little pawns. Remember, this is like a chess game. We're little pawns. They're all different pieces. We don't even know who the king and queen is anymore because it's so big and vast, and we're ruled by all these families who've been expanding for thousands of years. We're just little pawns. We're like, you always have to take it like you're watching a play. So we'll see what develops with Candace. She's not going to be on until next week. I do believe that she believes that there's assassination, and it could possibly be a real assassination attempt. They could have been plotting something, and there could be some push against two different nations, against two different powering factors behind the scene that we don't know. And Candace and other podcasters are just pawn players. A lot of people think Candace's marriage was strategic. She doesn't feel it is. She loves her husband, and she says that it's legit. So take her word for it. I'm not going to trash her and say it's not legit. They have 4 children. Her husband, again, she converted to Catholicism. Are they in with the Catholic? Like I said, there's so many moving parts. It's hard to say, but I really feel like we're looking at some secret battle for the elites to consolidate power further. And it's playing on the stage this way. And I'm sure if you traveled back in time to these wars, whether it's World War I or World War II, you would see the same thing happening. But just on different platforms, radio, movie reels, newspaper. Now it's playing out on Twitter, on podcasts. But it's always a consolidation and there's always a battle. And I think because this system is psychopathic, it's always, even the elites, it's always looking at who's useful and who it can get rid of and how it has to consolidate and do different changes to get its ultimate goal. Remember, there's a transhumanism goal, and we got these tech bros, and who knows who a lot of these tech bros who are heads of the company, they're just actors too. There could be someone behind that, and we don't even know the Rothschilds' wealth. They say they don't have that much money, but it's all hidden. It's all secret. There's so much money laundering going on. There's so much money, and it seems to all be fake and insane. And if you want to live in that world, I mean, it's soul crushing. It would take any of us out because these people are evil. Nobody's your friend. Nobody's ever your friend up in that world. So, like I said, we have no idea what real battles are going on behind the scene in the elites. And I feel there's a big one. And if we see some elites pop out and become non-existent or crazy stuff happen, like just look at that. A lot of people think the Titanic crash was planned to do the reserves, to go off the gold standard, because the Aston guy that was on the Titanic was against it, and he was quite wealthy. So there's a lot of disasters that get planned or fall out that happen to get rid of people that are made to look like just accidents. Remember that submarine thing that went down in the ocean? There was all those rich people on it. What if that was something? What if they just do these crazy scenarios, play it out, and get rid of people that are in their way or that they feel are not useful? Like, that's how they think. It's really bizarre. So, yeah, it's the English royal family was scared that the anti-royalty sentiment would overflow to them. I think that's just a bullshit narrative. I think that's just what they said. You don't leave your cousins to die. You find them a safe place to go. I think there was a bigger plan there. I think there was a much bigger plan with the Tsar. I think they left them to be killed on purpose, and it was strategic. Absolutely, it was a way to win the war for sure. It was definitely a way to win the war, but I think there was something else going on there. And I wouldn't doubt that if these bankers were pushing that. Most of the people who were Bolsheviks were from a certain, and we won't say it on this because we don't want to get banned, but they weren't Christians. They slaughtered tens of millions of Christians. Let's just put it that way. Long before World War II happened, tens of millions of Christians were genocided and massacred. Just remember that. So there is something going on here. And I don't know how Candace is absolutely tied. I don't have this evidence. We'll pay attention. But obviously, I think that if there is some kind of assassination thing going on, we obviously have to address it because this is very serious. But I don't see them addressing it in the way that we would want them to, because they already have narratives that they roll out. You would think somebody would have like a response, like, okay, so we're going to plan this, and if it gets out or for some reason Candace exposes it or somebody exposes it, here's backup plan B, plan C. Like, you think they'd have better kind of management, project management, but they don't. They seem to be really sloppy and come up with crazy stuff. Either that or we're getting more clever. So Candace says she has the evidence. She has all the information. She has all that stuff. But you can see they're doing their spells and their narrative on her. But there's other narratives at work. There's something underneath all these psychological narratives. And I think you'll be able to see that when you go back in history at each and every time in history. Like, for instance, we'll go back to World War I again. The Archduke Ferdinand, the assassination of him, that's what triggered off World War I. Or that's what they used as an excuse to say, okay, everybody, now go to war. It was done by some kind of pan-Serbian terrorists. It's like these people always create these terrorists. And now we have here in the United States, some more assassinations happen. Revolution. There's some really weird, crazy narrative. It could be the tech bros are involved. It could be Palantir. Like, we don't know. They could be ruining. Candace could be a thorn in their side. But we cannot forget that Candace has the numbers. Candace has people watching her. And they could take her off the air. But psychopaths are also sneaky. They don't want you to know they're psychopaths. They want at least 30 or 40% of people like thinking they are solid and normal and healthy, because that's how they have to have that go out to the public. A minimal, because then those other people do the work for them. It's not just Project Mockingbird. We become Project Mockingbird. We repeat all these narratives. We repeat all these lines. We repeat these slogans. We tell people to buy this. We can be hypnotized into thinking our product is better than what it is just because it's got good packaging. Like, magical logos and slogans and one-liners that are catchy, that are a spell, whether you want to know it or not. I'm anxious to see what happens with this. What more information comes out with Candace. A lot of people are even criticizing her, saying she's taking a week off. She's running away. They're insane. The amount of gaslighting coming out of a lot of the Zionists who are getting paid online, and a lot of the way they twist things. It's like if they're talking and they're typing, they're lying and twisting, they're gaslighting, they're reframing, they're being super dishonest. It's pretty evil. So let's go back. We got a fun video. We're going to end the show off in a fun way. I think I could be wrong, but if I'm right, you guys have to come back here and say, hey, crazy, in the next 12 months, if we see some elite people popping off and disappearing and weird disasters happening, we know crazy's happening. Crazy's happening. I'm trying to find this video. It's quite humorous. We're going to end it with some humor because they're making fun of Israel and France. And we should all be making fun of Macron. That stuff there is twisted. And that's like, I haven't even gotten into the twisted stuff of the crazy people in France and the elites. You go look at the series. You go look at Xavier Prasard's book and all his journalism. This isn't shoddy gossip. All the stuff that the bots are doing against them is shoddy gossip. This is like really well-researched stuff. It's actually, because most of us wouldn't do it, we find the most preposterous, that we find it so hard to believe because it's so crazy that we think people who say it's happening are crazy rather than the people who are the villains are crazy. Like it is hard to believe, but I think it's true. Oh, here we go. This is The Foundering. We're going to play his song he wrote just for Candace called The Jets of Cairo. I'm going to pause that there. Want to get it all? Let's have some fun. Let's tie this show up with a fun song.
There's a place called France where the ladies wear the pants. Young Emmanuel understood that very well. Les Macron sont rather kinky, Brigitte has a petite winky. For his baby it was pinky, c'est la vie en France. He never saw the Jets of Cairo, watching every step he made. Charlie We'd like to say goodbye too late. You've been JFK. Maintenant, en France, Candace, elle n'a pas de chance. It's too bad, dommage, if she has a nasty crash. They are landing out in Wilmington. Poor Charlie, they kept filming him in Egypt. They like shilling Tel Aviv, la France. He never saw the jets of Cairo, tracking every step he made. Charlie, we'd like to say goodbye too late. You've been JFK'd. Some say Israel has the world under its spell. If you'll notice, we give out, we will crush your goyim balls. Ever since the old diaspora, we're banned from every class for us. We're flooding you with Haspera, our dreidel dance. He never saw the jets of Provo, flying straight from Minot Base. POTUS says, thank you, Charlie Shlomo, for serving the chosen race. And now Pavel Durov, he says, Candace Mazel Tov. Les Macron, it's true, would assassinate you too. Our world leaders all are captured by the Baphomet hermaphrodites with pedophilic appetites and eyes wide shut. So I'd shut up. He never saw the jets of Cairo, stalking every step he made. Charlie, we'd like to say goodbye too late. You've been JFK'd. He never saw the jets of Cairo, so God willing, inshallah, maybe Charlie didn't die. We'll see you in Valhalla.
All right, guys, that is it. That is how we're going to finish the show with the Jets of Cairo. You guys go subscribe to that channel. They're on X, but I'm pretty sure they have videos all over. They were the I'll give you their handle right now. They were Foundering, FOUNDRING, Foundering 1 with the number 1 at Foundering 1 on X. You could probably, let me see here. I think they might be on YouTube. They're on Rumble. Okay, so they're on Rumble. They're a ragtime satirical band. Rumble.com/user/foundering. So you can check that out. Actually, I'm going to copy and paste and put it right in the live chat. We will give you their link if you guys want to go check them out. There they are. That is it. I know we'll be seeing some strange stuff in the next year. The elites are going to get aggressive, desperate, and we're going to see like some shit revealed out of their personalities, and I do believe there's a war with the elites behind the scene, and we're going to see some crazy stuff fall out of the way. So guys, have a great Thanksgiving tomorrow. Don't forget to come by on Sunday. We're going to try to do it at 3 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. in the afternoon. It's Spiritual Sunday. We are going to talk about psychology and demonic possession, I think. I've been watching a lot of stuff about it, and I've seen some really great clips about a psychologist who worked in prisons with people who had schizophrenia and different mental illnesses, dealing with them. And he has a lot of really interesting information to say about psychology. We're going to talk about this possession and what he experienced, and we'll get some clips, and it should be interesting. We'll do that and some other stuff. I want to do Ellen Watts, but I have to do more research. We might have to do that in the new year. Remember, December's coming up. So enjoy your Thanksgiving. And if you guys are going out on Friday for Black Friday, be careful. I'm not going out shopping. I'm not participating in the insanity of this consumeristic, crazy place. It's so empty and shallow. I won't be doing it. But if you choose to, please be safe and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I will see you on Sunday.